this is the Fayette County Public Library Storytime. I'm Miss Melissa and this is Miss Kim, and we're here to read you some stories.
That pesky dragon. No dragons on this page.
Oh, there he is.
Oh,
There he is.
Izzy's dad had a farm, and on that farm there was a herd of cows. See all the cows? And a goat, a flock of sheep, some chickens, 3 cats, and a dragon. It didn't take everyone long to realize that there was a dragon on the farm. Its fierce roar gave it away. When Izzy stood on tiptoes and peered out of her window, she could just see the tip of the dragon's tail by the whale on top of the hill. Roar! Can we go and look at it? Asked Izzy. Certainly not, said Dad. Dragons are far too dangerous. If we leave it alone, it'll be gone by tomorrow.
Don't get closer.
But the next morning, it was the roar of the dragon and not the rooster that woke Izzy from her cozy dream. Arrgh! It's still here, thought Izzy, secretly pleased. But she was in for a shock when she went out into the cold to gather the eggs for breakfast. These eggs feel rock hard, said Izzy, as she shivered her way around the hen house. It's that pesky dragon, said Grandpa angrily. His fiery breath has hard-boiled the eggs. Izzy was desperate to see the dragon, but Mom wouldn't hear of it. That dragon's a mean one. You can tell from its roar, she said. I think it sounds sad, said Izzy. Can't I take a tiny peek? Arrgh! Definitely not, said Mom. Go inside, and with luck, it will fly away soon. But the dragon didn't fly away. That afternoon, when Izzy went outside to help, Mom milked the cow. They were in for another shock. Yogurt! Cried Izzy. Oh dear, said Mom. It's that pesky dragon's fault. Its roaring has scared the cows and turned their milk to yogurt. Arrgh! The next morning, it was the light of the dragon's fiery breath and not the light of the rising sun that woke Izzy. A lovely smell was drifting up the stairs. Toast, cried Izzy, sliding down the banister. It's not toast. It's my prize wheat, Dad said bitterly. That pesky dragon burned a whole field in the night. This can't go on. I'm calling remove a dragon. Not remove a dragon, shrieked Izzy. Why don't you just ask the dragon to leave? Oh, it's far too dangerous, said Dad, picking up the phone. It's fierce, that dragon. Just listen to its roar. It sounds hurt, not fierce, if you ask me, said Izzy. Run along now while I make this call, said Dad. So Izzy ran. She ran out of the farmhouse, past the chicken coop, through the cow pasture, and all the way up the hill toward the dragon. Arrgh! Suddenly, Izzy was scared. What if the dragon was dangerous? What if it was hungry? What if it ate little girls for breakfast? She panicked. But it was too late. The dragon had already seen her. Oh. Izzy took a brave step forward. She could see the scales on its tail and feel the heat of its breath. But the big, roaring, scary dragon was just a tiny dragon trapped in the well and crying for help. "I've been shouting for help for days," the dragon cried. Izzy ran back down the hill and got Mom and Dad, Grandpa, and the Remove-A-Dragon lady to help. "They look scary," whispered the dragon as they marched toward him. "Don't worry," said Izzy. "Sit still and don't breathe or you might singe us when we pull you out." The dragon held his breath while Izzy, the Remove-A-Dragon lady, Mom, Dad, and Grandpa pulled and pulled and pulled until, pop, the dragon was free. Now Izzy's dad has a farm with a herd of cows, a flock of sheep, a goat, some chickens, 3 cats, 2 dogs, and a dragon. And now Izzy loves cold mornings. With a dragon around, there's always hot milk, hard-boiled eggs, and toast for breakfast.
Yogurt too.
And that's the end.
We have a fun activity to do for you guys on the felt board called 10 Dizzy Dragons. Each of you have dragons that you're going to bring up when yours is called. 10 dizzy dragons lived long, long ago in a land full of magic where few people could go. The first dragon wore a garland of flowers. The second dragon had strong magic powers. The third dragon flew wildly through the air. The fourth dragon lived in a jewel-filled lair. The fifth dragon rescued people in trouble. The sixth dragon liked to blow pretty bubbles. The seventh dragon wore a crown made of gold.
I keep saying it.
The eighth dragon had a heart brave and bold. The ninth dragon had breath of smoky green fire. The 10th dragon was a terrible, awful liar. 10 dizzy dragons lived long, long ago in a land full of magic where in your dreams you can go. Now ready for another story by Miss Kim?
How about some animals that are more familiar? If all the animals came inside. If all the animals came inside, my brother would cry, my sister would hide. The doggy would bark, the kitten would hiss, my parents would make funny faces like this. But I wouldn't look for a place to hide. I'd climb aboard for an elephant ride. Thump, rump, bang, bump. The walls would tremble, the windows would shake. Oh, what a terrible mess we would make. When all the animals played hide and seek, I'd cover my eyes, but the monkeys would peek. They'd laugh and they'd point, they'd swing and they'd run. I'd hide with a hippo and have so much fun. Crash, bash, zoom, boom. The walls would tremble, the closets would quake. Oh, what a terrible mess we would make. When all the animals wanted a snack, the skunk and the panda and even the yak would rush to the kitchen and chew up our food. Mommy would tell them to stop being rude. Lunch, munch, burp, crunch. The walls would tremble, the dishes would break. Oh, what a terrible mess we would make. An awful lot of food going everywhere there, isn't there?
Yeah, they're making a mess.
When all the animals needed a drink, they'd slobber and drool all over the sink.
Ew.
The badger would blubber, the grizzly would burp, my sister would mutter, "It's not nice to slurp." Phew, woo, ick, ew. The walls would tremble, the cupboard would shake. Oh, what a terrible mess we would make. The lions would roar as they sprawled on the floor. The lemurs would lollygag right by the door. My daddy would try to sit down in his chair. He'd holler and hoop with a porcupine there. Look at that.
Oh, look at his butt. Now it's sharp.
Ooh, wow, ouch, ouch. The walls would tremble. The sofa would break. Oh, what a terrible mess we would make. The gibbons would giggle, hyenas would laugh. The ostrich and I would go race the giraffe. We'd follow the bears as they ran up the stairs. We'd bounce on the beds and knock over chairs. Rumble, jumble, pounce, bounce. The walls would tremble. The dressers would shake. Oh, what a terrible mess we would make.
Look at the stairs are like cracking. Wait until they grow up.
Yeah, good observation there. At bath time, my daddy would stammer and stare. You can't take a bath with an octopus there. The faucet would leak, the bathroom would flood. Daddy would slip and he'd land with a thud. Splish, splash, slip, splat. The walls would tremble, the toilet would shake. Oh, what a terrible mess we would make.
The toilet would shake.
When all of the animals wanted to play, they'd grab all my toys. They'd take them away. Upstairs and downstairs and out in the hall, the chipmunks would draw with my paint on the wall. Wibble, scribble, wipe, swipe. The walls would tremble, the crayons would break. Oh, what a terrible mess we would make. The bats would be dealing my cards on the ceiling. The squirrels would be squealing. The paint would be peeling.
I see the cracks in the ceiling and the paint coming off.
The rhinos downstairs would be watching TV. They'd stand in the way and leave no room for me. Spilling the popcorn and causing a riot, whooping and snorting, they'd never be quiet. Every last creature would sleep in my bed with oodles of pillows, one for each head.
There's no head for the giraffe if they sleeping right on. It could this
Where's the boy?
The boy's on the floor.
No room for the boy in the bed, is there? From sunset to sunrise, the wolves and the owls would keep us awake with their hooting and howls.
Close all the doors. Lock all the doors.
We'd have nowhere to sleep, so we'd stretch and we'd yawn. We'd pack up our tent and go play on the lawn. As fun as a house full of critters could be, my dog and my kitten are plenty for me. But oh, what a wild and wonderful ride when all the animals came inside. Would you like all those animals in your house?
No, I would scream. I was like, yeah.
Don't want all those animals in your house?
Killer or something and swat at them.
Mm.
I'll try to hit them.
Would you like to hear a silly story now? The Three Sillies. Hi-ho, hoof and heap, a-courting we will go. Do you know what it means to go courting?
No.
To have a date? The Three Sillies.
There's one short.
Once upon a time, there was a farmer and his wife who had one daughter, and she was courted by a gentleman. Wife, daughter, look, a gentleman's come a-courting. He looks rich. He looks handsome. Every evening he stopped to supper, and the daughter was sent to the cellar to draw the cider. One night, just as the daughter turned on the tap, she noticed a mallet in the beams, and she began a-thinking. See the mallet up here in the beams? Suppose him and me was to be married, and we was to have a teeny tiny son, and he was to grow up to be a fine young man. And suppose our son was to come down into the cellar to draw the cider, and the mallet was to fall on his head. What a dreadful thing that would be. And she began a-crying. Well, the girl failed to return with the cider, and finally her mother went down to see what was a-keeping her. Look at that horrid mallet, shrieked the daughter, and she confessed all that she had been a-thinking. Married, teeny tiny son, all growed up, drawing the cider, donked, gone. Dear, dear, said the mother, and she began a-crying too. Then after a while the father went down to look for them. Look at that horrid mallet, screamed the mother, and she told them all that their daughter had been a-thinking. Dear, 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 said the father, and he started a-crying. So now all three sillies are crying. At last the gentleman got tired of waiting, and he went to draw a sip of cider for himself. And wasn't he surprised to find the farmer and his wife and daughter a-sobbing and a-screeching and a-swimming in the cellar full of cider. The gentleman burst out laughing. Hee hee ha 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 hee 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 hee. In all my travels, I've never met three sillier sillies, said he. Now I shall set out traveling again, and when I can find three sillies who are even sillier than you three, I'll come back and marry your daughter. And the gentleman left them all a-wailing worse than before. After traveling a while, the gentleman came upon an old woman who was teaching a cow to spring onto the roof of her cottage to eat the weeds that were a-growing there. Pay attention, grapefruit. Up you go now. Leap onto the roof. Woof, moof. Madam, she's a cow, not a kangaroo. Cock-a-doodle-doof. That's pretty silly, don't you think? The old woman insisted. Listen, you bovine goof, I said. Puff, poof, up on the roof. Woof, the dog said. Oof, move your hoof. Move! And finally, she got the cow up. There he is on top of the roof. Then the old woman fastened a string around the cow's neck and passed it down the chimney and tied the other end to her waist.
Uh-oh.
She'll be quite safe with this string on both of us. She can't fall off the roof without my knowing it. Quite daft, said the gentleman, and he took his leave. Do you know what that means when it says he took his leave? It means he left, yeah. The gentleman hadn't gone far when he was overtaken by a funeral procession, and he heard a dreadful tale. It seemed the old woman's cow had tumbled off the roof, and the weight of the cow had pulled the old woman into the chimney, and she got stuck halfway up and was smothered in soot.
Did she die?
A tumbled, a yanked, and a smothered.
Did she die?
That's what it may sound like. It's just a silly story, though. Well, that was the first big silly. Granny McRoot is kaput. She was a hoot. I'll miss the old coot. Brute. The gentleman traveled on and on and on and on until he came to an inn at dusk. The inn was so full that the innkeeper put him in a double-bedded room. Here's the room you'll have to share with Nettie and his teddy bear. Look at all that food all over the bed. That's silly. In the morning, the gentleman was surprised to see his roommate hang his trouser on the knobs of the chest of drawers and try to jump into them. He tried over and over and over again, but he couldn't manage it. Look, try it this way, said the gentleman, and he showed the fellow how to put his trousers on. This is how. Silly again, isn't it? Up and on, down and off. The fellow proceeded to pop his trousers on and off and up and down until he had quite mastered the skill. Then he burst joyfully into song. I sally forth with pants unfurled to share my talent with the world. When it comes to getting dressed, I'm the champion. I'm the best. That fellow's mad, berserk, possessed. He's a public pest. Put him under arrest. Well, that was the second big silly. So when they put him under arrest, where does he go? So the second big silly ended up in jail. The gentleman's travels soon brought him to a village. And outside the village there was a pond, and around the pond was a crowd of people with rakes and brooms and pitchforks, a whining, a whimpering, and a wailing. Sob, whine, sigh, whimper, wheeze, weep, snuffle. The gentleman asked what was the matter. Why, they said, matter enough. The moon's tumbled into the pond, and we can't get her out. The gentleman burst out laughing. Look up into the sky, it's only the moon's reflection, he exclaimed. Ha ha ha. Well, that was dozens of sillies. But before the gentleman could complete his list, the crowd became a restive, a riled, and a riotous. Scoundrel, varmint, idiot, curl. Giddy up, hoof and heap. Suddenly I longed to see those sunny sillies back on the farm. And so he took his leave. The gentleman was heartened by the joyous welcome that awaited him. Dear, sweet, simple-minded sillies, he said, in my travels I have met dozens of sillies who are far sillier than yourselves. Therefore I shall keep my promise. Let us be married at once. I'll have a teeny tiny son. And they hastened to the chapel. Do I? Yes, yes, yes. And after the wedding, all of the guests were invited to celebrate at the farmhouse. The gentleman went to the cellar to draw jugs of cider so that all could toast his new bride. Just as he turned on the tap, the galumphing footsteps of the dancers above joggled the mallet loose. Down it fell, directly donking the gentleman. Then it bounced back and settled itself on the very beam from which it had dislodged. Stunned, the gentleman keeled over and rolled under the flowing tap. He's getting his cider.
He's drinking too much.
The entire keg of cider had drained to the gentleman before he was discovered by his bride. Now look at him.
He's dead.
He's full of cider. She hauled him back to the celebration. Looky here, it seems certain that this sweet, swollen, cider-sodden swain, who once sailed forth in search of sillier sillies, is himself the silliest silly in the land. It wasn't long before the gentleman and his wife were blessed with a child, a handsome lad, just like his dad. The proud parents imagined a brilliant future for their son. He'll be a genius like his father. He'll be a prime minister. He'll be president. Finally, the tyke spoke to himself, or for himself. When I grow up, I want to be a great big silly just like my mom and dad. And so those three sillies set off around the world in search of silly adventures, and they live forever afterward in blissful silliness. How's that for a silly story?
That's silly. girly and silly.
Okay, Miss Melissa.
Okay.
Saying go unmove, hit him, go back up.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Well, reading with your child gives them the important listening skills that they need to succeed in life. One of the things that you can do is while you're reading is ask questions, or after the story is over, ask them what they thought was their favorite part or their least favorite part or how it relates to their lives. But you can also do activities like this where our children had to listen to the story and pick the correct dragon. We would like to thank you for joining us for story time, and we will see you
Come on, boys.
next time.
Bye-bye.